Hey Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. It's Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Seneca Williams, who is a licensed mental health counselor and entrepreneur coach. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you and I appreciate being here.
The pleasure is all ours. You have an amazing title. I was going to let you know that already, right? You seem like you're jack of many trades. And today we're going to be diving into some of those interesting stories and how you got to where you are. But before we actually get into that moment in time, just give us an opportunity to kind of hear from you a little bit more about your cultural background and where you're from.
Okay. My cultural background, I was born in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm surprised sometimes when other Caribbeans aren't familiar with St. Vincent, but it happens.
Mhm.
So St. Vincent and the Grenadines is where I was born, and I was raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, BK. Okay. So St.
Yeah.
Vincent to Brooklyn. That seems like a massive leap right here. What's going on? From the
We
Caribbean.
to America for the dream.
Of
Yeah,
course.
we came to America for the dream. Yeah.
And I like when I hear from our first generation immigrants and second generation immigrants when they say that we came here for the dream. Like there was something that inspired us to take that leap of faith to come here, right? So I could only imagine what life was like in St. Vincent on the island, and then all of a sudden you're in Brooklyn, right? And it's like definitely a big change from where you were growing up. When did you actually come to America?
So my experience isn't coming as an immigrant that was older. It was different because I was raised in Brooklyn. So I came over as a baby. So I was raised in Brooklyn, like
Okay, yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
What I would say from that experience, how it is similar, is when you're raised in a Caribbean household and they have just come here, just come to America, or sometimes it's England or Canada, they're coming with their traditions and customs,
Yes.
lifestyle from wherever. So you're basically only exposed to that lifestyle, traditions,
Yeah.
and culture until you go to school. And that's when you realize I'm different. Because now you're going to school and it's like American kids and American culture, and they're talking different and acting different. And I realized, like, oh, so we aren't the same. And that's when you realize, like, okay, there's an immigrant experience. There's something going on. When your teachers are asking, what language do you speak?
And something about a lot of our our guests that have been on the show, a lot of them mention Canada, right? A lot of them mention Brooklyn, right? Obviously New York, but Brooklyn for some reason. Now, I could only imagine the melting pot in Brooklyn at that point in time, right? I know there's a lot of Caribbean culture in that area. So how did you feel like you were at home in the sense that you felt like you were connected to your culture when growing up in Brooklyn?
Let me tell you how connected to the culture.
He said, let me tell you how connected. I like this.
Let me tell you how connected. You're familiar with Brooklyn?
Oh, of course. I'm from New York, Bronx.
Okay, you're from the Bronx. So you know about the Labor Day.
Oh, the Parkway?
And Carnival. Okay.
The Parkway.
I literally, right, you know about the Parkway. Okay, so you know that. I literally live about 8 blocks from it. I grew up 8 blocks from the Parkway. Yes.
Every Labor Day must be turned up.
Yeah.
So you definitely wasn't disconnected.
No way at all. No way at all disconnected. It was weird going to different parts of Brooklyn.
True.
Like, you go to Sheepshead Bay and you go to different parts of Brooklyn and you're like, oh, it's not like over here. Because where I lived, if you're familiar with Eastern Parkway, people are selling things on the street. They're selling fruits and vegetables on the street.
Fish, breadfruit.
Exactly. You have the Chinese stores, they're selling the fruits and the vegetables and all the stuff from back home. So I didn't know that it was any different.
Yeah, I see, I see. That's a great way of breaking that down, because you're right. You wouldn't know it was different, right? You wouldn't know anything else because what you saw is exactly what would actually happen when you were back home. Now,
Yeah, they have those shops and all that.
what does when we talk about St. Vincent, what does your culture mean in coming from St. Vincent, from that legacy, that history, right? What does it mean to you?
When I was growing up, I have to go backwards. When I was growing up, I used to feel a sense of, I don't want to say shame, but I felt like I had to tone it down. I never would tell people where I was from. I never talked about it. If someone brought up and were like, "Oh, you sound a little different. Where are you from?" I would just be like, "Oh, from the Caribbean." But when I got older and I started, feeling more confident about being from the Caribbean, and we had Wyclef Jean come out, and then we had different artists
Yeah,
come
Sean Paul.
and Sean Paul, and they're representing. Most people only knew about Jamaica, and then
Yeah.
like here's Haiti, Haiti's representing. So I was like, I'm from St. Vincent. And people would be like, wow, tell me about it. Where's that from? What part of Africa is that? And I was like, whoa, whoa.
Oh, no, no, no.
A part of Africa. It is not in Jamaica. It
When
is
you
in
hear the word the saint before anything, it's
yeah.
most likely the Caribbean.
It's most likely the Caribbean. And then some people think it's the US Virgin Islands. And then I'll be like, nope, it's not in the US Virgin Islands. And they're like, wow, they're just so interested. I started developing more pride about it. Or the fact that I am from St. Vincent and Grenadines, which is a dot on the globe. And some globes, you probably don't even see it. It's a dot. It's just
We got to talk
like,
to those
wow.
people that created those maps. They try to play you.
Yeah. It is a small island though.
But a vibrant island.
It is a vibrant island, but what I tell people, it's very untouched. It's not like going to the Bahamas or like a touristy place. It's still very untouched there.
And that's a beautiful thing to have still. A lot of the Caribbean islands have been, dominated by somewhat of the American culture.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like diluted what the culture of the island stood for at one point. So St. Vincent, along with like something like a Montserrat, at Antigua, like some of these places that are not very heavily populated when it comes to the tourist area. And, it still has that island, like almost 90% of the island is the island, right? Versus like 50% is the island, and then the other 50% is all tourist stuff going on and stuff, which is beautiful because it brings money to the island. It gives the opportunities for workers and stuff like that. But at the same time, people go to islands for the islands. I'm not trying to leave New York to go to Jamaica and feel like I'm in New York again.
Right. That, but it's not like that there. We do have KFC.
Okay.
We do have that.
Okay. I give you the one food chain you got.
Yeah. Got KFC.
You gotta have KFC in the Caribbean. Everybody love their chicken out there.
Gotta have that.
Now, what were like some of the memorable moments as a child growing up? I know you, like you said, you moved into Brooklyn, but like what were like some of the things that you could think back and be like, wow, this like really made my childhood?
Well, when I was very young, we would go back more frequently because my grandmother was there, my mom's mother. She was there. And I remember going to her house, which was like, it was like a one-room house. And like the bedrooms like had curtains to separate. So it still looked like the house she built back in like the 1950s or 60s. And I remember she still had an outdoor kitchen. So you had to go outside to go to the kitchen.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. I remember she still had an outhouse.
Wow.
I'm talking about like 1984, 85. Yeah, she still had an outhouse. She still collected water in barrels.
Yeah.
All that. So I remember going back at those times and feeling like a warp, like coming from Brooklyn where you have all these things, going back home. It was like going back in time.
Yes,
No
yes,
air
yes.
condition.
Yeah.
There's no air condition.
Don't
And I'm
talk
trying,
about the air conditioner now.
did she even have like a fan? I don't remember if there was even a fan. I just remember feeling like we're going back in time.
Yes,
And
yes.
I just remember like doing things with her, when she's cooking, like watching her like make things, and you cook outside, so those are my
That's
early memories of
next level right there.
yeah, those are my early memories of going back there.
And those moments in time, I remember going back home to, because I'm Jamaican in St. Lucia. Mom is from Jamaica, pops in St. Lucia. So every time I went back home to the Caribbean, I would be like, wait, hold up, this how y'all live life out here?
Mm-hmm.
And to them it was like nothing. They're just like,
Right.
they're like, oh, the shower's outside. I'm like, first off, hold on, the shower's outside. We would come
Oh, I
right back
forgot
in.
that. Yeah, there was, the standpipe
Yeah.
outside. Yeah,
You're
no
like,
bathroom. Yeah.
what we doing? And I'm like, I get it. I get it. And it took me a while to like truly embrace that, and really acknowledge that, like, that is my culture. That is the history. Like, I can't forget that, right? That made my father, that made my mother, and it's a part of myself and also my other siblings. So those moments of going back home, are always like a stamp for me. And now that we're adults now, we could go back there and appreciate it even more, because we're at that place where we could actually be like and pay some significant homage to what actually gave birth to us. So yeah, shout out to that, because those moments in time, you go back and you think about it, like, I sometimes I even say I wouldn't mind living there now with all the technology and all this cars. Give me the outside kitchen any day of the week.
You
I'm
say
good.
that until it start raining.
Oh,
But yeah, I understand the slow life, it feels good to slow down. And I think that we forget how much slowing down and being in nature, how
mm,
that natural experience affects our mind and our mental health.
and
We're
that's why.
like
Yeah.
constantly plugged in,
Yeah.
constantly on social media, constantly on the phone, doing something and wondering, why are we so stressed out? Why am I so anxious? Why am I depressed? Why am I uneasy? I can't sleep, because we're
Wrinkles.
missing the natural things. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stress level, like you said, that's a big thing. The Caribbean culture, and a lot of the guests that have come on have spoken about that, about like my grandmother living to like 100 and something, right? With no problems, right? And in America, you think about that, like 100, you question if someone could actually make it to 100, right? But it's a different lifestyle growing up in the Caribbean to like where we are in the States. And you could see, like you said, you're always plugged in out here versus disconnecting. But some people, when they go home or travel to the Caribbean, they say they're disconnecting, but they're really plugged in. So
Yeah.
the stress always travels with them. Now, some of those life lessons that you learned at an early age, I know have obviously have shaped your career and have given you a lot of that insight to making you the person that you are right now currently. Like, what were some of those life lessons that you learned in your early childhood to kind of shape you to where you are now?
So I'm going to say this, and sometimes people misunderstand it when I say it, but I grew up with a lot of discipline. And I'm not talking about punishment. Like, people think of like punishment. I'm not talking about that stuff, because that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's a whole different side of the
It's a
Caribbean.
whole different,
That's a whole side of the Caribbean that we're going to talk
that's a
about.
whole other thing, right? When I say discipline, I mean having the stick-to-itiveness, having the perseverance, knowing I want to get this thing. Like, I remember growing up, we didn't have cars. We used to take the bus and the train. And I remember both of my parents, at some point, both of them got cars. And like, at that point, I didn't understand certain things, like, why can't I have McDonald's? Why do I have to have McDonald's money? But I didn't get or connect that, because we're
Mm.
using money so that we can have a car. So sometimes you want that immediate gratification, you want to be satisfied, but that discipline I learned from them.
Mm-hmm. That's something our parents
Yeah.
really, and our grandparents, they would save underneath the bed, the
Yeah.
mattress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, why are we saving money? We could go out and eat right now. We could live a
Yeah.
lavish life with them. It's not like the money's not there. but they had a bigger plan. And you spoke about it and you said it, you hinted at it. You said the American dream, right? And that was a dream of the early, I want to say the first generation immigrants, where it was like, let's just save. Let's just save. Now we're in a different wave where we're saving, but we're investing.
Right.
Now. And investing.
They didn't know about the investments. They knew about susus though. Don't like sleep on the Caribbean people probably know what I'm talking about, but I don't know if other people would. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. That's right.
So
we're gonna pass that money around.
Of investing.
We're gonna pass that money around. That's it. Right. But that was it. That was our way of investing at that time. Because we weren't privileged enough to learn how to do it. But now in our society now, because I know we're going to talk about the mental health and all that kind of stuff moving into later on into the interview, but now we're investing not just our finances, but in our health and in a lot of other things as well too, which is helping us out in that transition, and helping out the next generation of immigrants to come here. So that I could only imagine the amount of knowledge you have that you're going to be sharing with us this evening on that. Now, paralegal, licensed medical counselor, and also a successful entrepreneur coach. That's a lot. That is a lot right there. And you do it very well. Can you share with us like a pivotal moment or challenge that you faced during your career change? I think around like in 2000, maybe 8 or so, around that time, for those individuals who don't know about this journey of you.
Okay. It's like a book or two about my career entrepreneur journey, but we'll just talk about 2008.
We're gonna cut it. We're gonna come right to the chase. We're gonna knock out everything else. 2008. We're gonna lock it in right here.
It's too much. It's too much. But 2008, for those who don't know, was a turning point. It was, a downturn for our government financially. And I remember at that time, I still wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I was working in a law firm. And I remember going on vacation. Like I went to England, went on vacation. And when I came back home, they were like, you don't have a job.
Oh, no.
I was like, what?
I was just on vacation. I didn't spend money. I need to make the money back.
Right. Like, what? And literally, they wiped out the entire department that I worked in. They wiped out everybody got laid off.
No notice.
No notice, nothing. And I remember talking to the manager and he was like, I'm the only one here and I'm probably next. And you would think I would be devastated. You would think that. And I was actually relieved. If I wasn't laid off, I wouldn't have gotten to step back and be like, do I even want to do this? Because the first thing that came to my mind is I don't want to apply to another law firm. I don't want to go back in another law firm. That was what came to mind. So I was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? What's next?
And I could only imagine at that time, like being afraid, right?
Yeah. So 2008, not knowing. Nope.
Again, it's like you're in a situation where you have to create a game plan on the spot.
Got to create a game plan on the spot to give people an idea of where I was at that time. I was a mom at that time, a single mom. I had a 2-year-old.
Dan, that's a hit right there. And the fact that when we think about it, this is corporate America. This is an environment where we're thinking like we want to be a part of something like this, right? And then you come home and this is what happens. With no consideration, your job could be you're disposable at any point in time.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that immigrant mindset is like we have to try to find a way to get to this corporate environment, right? But there's another way of doing it as well too, in which we're going to talk a little bit more about when you talk about being an entrepreneur coach, right? Working for yourself, creating your own business, your own legacy, where you get to actually decide when you want to go to work, if that's the case. When you come home from a vacation and all of a sudden they're like snip, snip, and you got a family to feed. You got to start thinking. And some people just don't think fast enough on their feet like that because there's a lot of stress and pressure to kind of and that causes that mental health issues the depression, anxiety, when things like that. But you found a way to what was like some things that you did to kind of like help you through that moment?
Okay. 2008, I have to figure out what to do. And this is what I tell people. It's okay if you don't know exactly what you're going to do. It's okay. I never had a problem getting a job. So I wasn't like too worried about that. But in the moment, it was like, okay, I need to get like, what is it called when you get laid off? Unemployment.
Unemployment, yeah.
You know, if you need to get unemployment, if you need to get food stamps, if you need to get Medicaid, if you need to get whatever, you can't have so much pride that you're like, I can't get any of these things that are available to me because you worked and you paid taxes. So I got whatever I needed to get. And then at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something. And this is another thing. People don't like trying things because it's like, what if I try it and it doesn't work out? What if I
True.
try it and I don't like it? Or what if I try it and it's a bad idea? I decided to try going into the psychology field. I had a bachelor's in psychology, but I never used it. The reason I never used it is because people told me you're not going to make any money in psychology. So I never used it. I decided to use it in 2008, which is wild because it's like, why would you try to start something new? And what I did is my whole resume was like all legal jobs, like law firms. So I went and I volunteered. I think I volunteered at New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Okay.
I volunteered so that I could have like something medical on my resume. And then I applied for an entry-level position with an organization that provided behavioral health services. So I worked with children in their homes and I would help them with like, there were children that had developmental disabilities and children that had autism, and I would help them with like behavioral skills, learning like how to dress themselves and, sometimes how to regulate their emotions. And I was like, okay, I'm using my bachelor's and I like this work. It's hard, but I like it. And it feels different than being in the law firm. Even though I was like going into homes, going into the projects, sometimes it was scary. And
as a woman as well, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you working at different hours of the night.
Working in the night. Yep.
Yeah. So
but I still wanted to do it.
And that goes to show the individual inside of you, what type of individual you are, where you're like, if there's a service that I could provide, I'm going to make it happen. You were doing it as a paralegal, and right, but then now you're transferring it over to being in that medical health counselor, and you're not stopping. But it is scary, to put yourself out there in an environment where some people are. First off, people have to be vulnerable and open when it comes to like their health and stuff like that, which could cause some issues in regards to conversations, right? And if people are not educated enough and you're trying to express something to them or you suggest something, it could kind of like knock them off their rocker, right? So I can only imagine putting yourself out there, trying to help and getting some type of resistance back,
So, after doing that for about a year or two, like this is 2008, 2010. I even forgot that I had applied to work at Mount Sinai School of Medicine. So I was doing, I was a research assistant because I needed to make money. So I had to have two jobs.
So right to it. She said 2008.
Two jobs.
Now, fast forward. I need to make money, Paul.
Right. So I had two jobs. I'm
going to keep it real. Okay, I like that.
I had that job working because it was minimum wage. They were paying minimum wage with the bachelor's degree. So I had the two jobs, and 2010, I was like, I'm going to go back to school for my master's degree in 2010. And that's what I did. I went back to school, got a master's degree in mental health counseling.
And that catapults you into this whole career.
Yeah, that allowed me to be a therapist, to provide therapy, and that opened the door for entrepreneurship because once you're a licensed therapist, you can work for yourself.
Now, what were like some of the common, or what are some of the most common, because you're talking about the entrepreneurs right now, right? What were like the most common obstacles entrepreneurs deal with when it comes to like setting their goals and like the services that they're going to be providing? Oh, so when they seek your services, like what are some of the common goals that they look for
When
when
people come
entrepreneurs
to
come to
therapy,
you?
yeah, when entrepreneurs come to therapy, they don't actually know what they need help with. They just know I don't feel like I'm accomplishing something. Or for those who are achieving an accomplishment, accomplishing something, they're just like, I just know that I'm very stressed. I just feel like I don't have work-life balance. These are things that their language. I don't feel like I have work-life balance. Or sometimes it's I'm nervous all the time. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I don't want to make the wrong decision. I'm lonely. People don't really have the language for what they're actually challenged with when they're coming to therapy. They just know I need help, something's wrong. Because
Mm,
sometimes they'll be like, hi, I need a consultation. I need work life balance. Hi, I need a consultation. I just feel really stressed out. Hi, I need a consultation. I don't even know what I need. I just need some support.
mm,
Those are the things they'll say. Here's what they actually need and what is going on. There's a major mindset shift from going from an employee to an entrepreneur. It taps into things that people don't even know are there. One of those things is autonomy. And what I mean by that is when you're an employee, someone hires you to do a job, a specific job that you were trained to do, and they tell you what to do. Here's your job description. Here's what you do. You basically know every day that I go here, I know what I have to do, or they're going to tell me what I have to do. There's like a manual, there's a blueprint. And if I do this, I get a raise. And if I do this, I get a promotion. That doesn't exist as an entrepreneur. No one is going
true.
to tell you what to do. There's no straight map. There's no line. There's no one line. There's no guarantee. There's no consistent check every 2 weeks, right?
You're gonna have to
And
put that work in.
you have to put that,
You gotta have a lot of faith. Let's get that straight right
you
there.
got to have a lot of faith. You have to be risk tolerant.
Yes.
You can't be like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to try it. And you cannot say it's not in my job description because you're going to be doing like 50 jobs that you never even knew existed.
let's let's clap it up right there. Let's keep it 100 right now. Let's keep it 100. It's not in your job description. I really admire that line because a lot of the guests that have been on that are entrepreneurs, they're like, I never thought I would do marketing, but I'm doing marketing. I never thought I would be a public speaker, but I gotta do public speaking. Never thought I would do sales, but I'm on calls every day doing sales, right? So as an entrepreneur, you're so right. You got to wear multiple hats and you have to wear them very well. You have to be comfortable wearing those hats.
Yeah.
Now,
That you never knew. Right.
migrating from the islands and then coming to Brooklyn, and then moving to South Florida, right? Let's not leave that out of there, right?
Okay.
How has like your immigrant experience approach helped you in regards to like therapy and coaching? Do you find like some ways of kind of bringing that into your job? I know discipline was a big thing for you, so I'm just wondering if that is something you kind of utilize.
Discipline, absolutely. I feel like because I've had this experience, it allows me to relate to so many people. I'm very curious about them. Like just in general, I'm curious about people and understanding them, but it's helped me with that. But as an immigrant, when I get clients from different nationalities and cultures, they actually feel really comfortable working with me because they share their things. So, for example, I have a lot of clients that are Caribbean, but I also have clients that are African. And I have clients that are Asian and clients that are Hispanic. And I learn to ask questions and not assume anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or I make space and hold space for them to bring their culture to our sessions, whatever that is. And sometimes working with people that don't have that ability, they're like, wow, I feel so seen and heard. Or you allow me to speak Spanish, even though I didn't understand it. You allow me to speak Spanish and express something in my language.
Okay. That's good that you're allowing people to have that sense of freedom, because that's where you want to go to someone in therapy. Like you want to feel like it's a safe space where you can be open and vulnerable and feel free to be you, right?
Right.
You don't want to walk in a room and be like, well, I guess we're in a corporate environment, we're in an office. Let me act this way, because then the message and you can't even do your job at that point in time, because you don't even know who's in front of you. You're like, is it you, or is it the person that I need to kind of move to the side to really get to what's really the underlying meaning? So I'm glad that you utilize that in your profession. Now, the commitment, right? Your commitment and passion to help with like mental health and stuff like that. You have done some speaking engagements as well, as I could see. And the engagements were from anywhere from universities to corporate wellness programs to small businesses. Like your approach now is going into like speaking engagements. How has that been for you? And how do you convey to your audience that message when you're speaking to them?
Well, speaking is very different than when I'm doing one-on-one therapy, because now I'm engaging in community. And I love seeing people have that moment where it clicks to them that I'm not the only person that thinks this or feels this. Other people think and feel this too. I'm not alone. I love when people connect that. It kind of opens it up where it's like, okay, so I'm safe to talk, and therapy isn't taboo, and it's not just for crazy people. I can talk to a therapist and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. So that's what I love about doing speaking and workshops, is it helps to connect people and to see themselves in others.
Mm. And speaking in larger groups, like obviously you get to an opportunity to kind of open people up to that environment that they probably would never. You got to be willing to walk into an office and say, hey, look, I need help, right? But when you're in a larger group, you could actually make it comfortable and break it down enough that someone could understand. I might want to try that. Okay. I don't know if it's with her or with this person, but I like what you're saying and the benefits to doing it. I think I might go into it, because there was a time frame where mental health was not looked at as it is now. It was like it was shunned on, like you said, the crazy people, right? Or the individuals that cause the issues and the problems. When in actuality, everyone should have a therapist at the end of the day by their side. That's a licensed person that could help them through certain things. But now I'm happy. I know that happy that it's now becoming a little bit more in the forefront. It's out there because of the bigger names, like bigger issues like depression and anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Those things lead to bigger things.
Yeah.
So I think that now that it's out there and people are starting to feel more comfortable raising their hand to say, hey, look, I might need some of that.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing to do, but when you do it, you'll be good, right? In your career, I know you do some online therapy work as well too with entrepreneurs. Like, how do you address like what I was just mentioning about like the anxiety and the depression amongst your clients? Because in an environment where you're an entrepreneur, like anxiety, depression are common denominators when it comes to like putting in these hours and working and really working for that American dream, if that's the case. Like, how do you help them work on creating some unique strategies to help them gradually improve?
Okay, so I'll answer that in two ways. I'll answer it the clinical way, and then also like what it looks like when we're working together. So clinically, when you go to therapy, usually what's going to happen is your therapist is going to do an assessment. And the assessment is just gathering a lot of facts about you. Like, tell me what you feel like. What is your day like? Tell me a little bit about your past. So they're gathering information about you in that assessment intake period. They're not trying to get in your business just to know your business. They really want to know about you so that they can help you and see you as a whole entire person. So I got to tell my Caribbean people that, because they'd be like, I don't want anybody all in my business. I'm like, but if you tell your friends and your family, they're going to all be in your business.
100%. Let's tell a licensed person now who has to sign documents saying that they can't tell nobody.
Right. This person legally cannot share your business.
Right. But you won't go tell Auntie Joe right over here, who
And
sit down and have
everybody will know.
spill the tea with everybody. We not doing that. There's a difference.
No. So that is a major thing. Or we also are sometimes taught that I'm weak. I don't want to come off as weak. I have clients, because I work with a lot of high functioning people. Obviously, they're entrepreneurs, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I didn't want, to say this because I'm trying to figure it out." And I'm like, "But you're in therapy for help. I'm right here in front of you. Oh, I was trying to figure it out myself."
It ain't working. That's why you here.
Yeah, it's not working. So, clinically, we do an assessment. You will have a diagnosis. Some people get hung up on the diagnosis. If you're using insurance legally, we have to have a diagnosis. So sometimes most of the diagnoses that I see are anxiety or depression, or if someone is going through a transition in their life, like they just started their business and they're having a baby, or they're going through a divorce and they have a business, or they just moved or relocated, that will diagnose that as adjustment disorder. Don't get hung up on a diagnosis. We're focusing on the symptoms that you experience, your thoughts, and your behaviors. So we do something called cognitive behavioral therapy. It's all about what you think, feel, and do. Everything you think becomes a feeling, and your feelings determine what you do or don't do. So are you going to submit that proposal? Well, if you start thinking like, my proposal is trash, I feel embarrassed, you're probably not going to submit it. So when it comes to working with clients now, I'm actually helping them to understand what they think, what they feel, what they do, and teaching them new ways to think, reframe their thoughts, manage their feelings, take care of themselves, like real self-care. Not, I did my hair and my nails, like really caring for yourself.
That's the common way of doing it.
Yeah. I took a bubble bath. Yeah, but you took a bubble bath, but you still have no boundaries.
That's right. Your daughter was or sit on the side of the toilet talking. Right. We still got the stress.
Right. You're still doing the same things and
just a different way.
Things. Right.
So you had wine. It was different.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. So you get to a point of like, what does real self-care look like? What does real healing look like? And it's an ongoing thing. You might go to therapy now and feel good, but 10 years down the road, you need to go back. So what we do is I just help them understand, like, as a whole being, your mental health is on a continuum, and you're anywhere on that continuum at any time. Either you're mentally healthy, and then sometimes people go towards mentally not healthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people are going through it. Imagine you are fine, and then all of a sudden, 2 of your family members pass away. You hired 5 people that you thought were going to be good in your company to handle things, and then you realize 3 of them aren't working out. Any person with that amount of stress trying to do all these things is going to have a hard time.
Yeah. It adds up.
It adds up.
And speaking it from the immigrant background, like we have kind of trained ourselves in regards to our culture, just to kind of keep our heads down and just kind of like push through, right? But like you said, being connected to yourself, like what you were talking about, being connected to nature, like being in the islands and stuff like that. It's important to kind of slow down and then find those, grab onto those people that could truly help you get more grounded. Because the more grounded you are, the better decisions you make in regards to your life, your well-being, and you start to, like you said, think, feel, and do. Those things will start to change. But again, you need to take the opportunity to say, I need help, or I'm looking for help, or I have questions. That's all I have, questions. And I just want to know what is some of the best things to do. So, and the work that you have done has, transpired to from online therapy to having these dialogues with larger corporations and companies. And I know something else is in the works. And I'm very excited for what I'm about to talk about right now, because you are one of the few individuals in which Zaka, the team, is going to be partnering with you. And I know you're going to be developing some workshops. I think the workshop itself is stress by success, if I'm correct, right? And it's how immigrant professionals can overcome and so remorse and like claim success. Like there's a lot of things that you're going to be talking about in this workshop series. I want to know, how did it come about, and what could the listeners and the participants expect from this workshop?
Okay. Stress by success, overcoming survivor's remorse without guilt. What people often don't realize is, yeah, we want to be successful, but there are people who struggle with success. They have a fear of being successful and leaving others behind. You feel guilty, you feel sad, you feel like, why me and not them? And you start to feel like, I don't deserve this. Or what some people do is, because they feel that way, they give so much. They start giving away everything, and they're sending money, and the Western Union and money gramming and
Oh, you better bring it. That's how you know you Caribbean. The Western Union, the money grab. That was every Christmas.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with giving back. There's
Yeah,
nothing
true.
wrong with that. Because I grew up where every year we would send a barrel and ship a barrel back home for Christmas, and I think around Easter.
Yes.
So for people who don't know and not familiar, you buy this big barrel, you go shopping, you buy a whole bunch of food. Sometimes you put your old clothes in there because people want clothes, not now, but back then. And you would ship it down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it used to be like located in the house where everyone could see it. And like you would just randomly go to the supermarket, and in 1 minute you just go drop it in there. The real question is, where do these barrels come from? Where do we even pick these barrels up? That's the real question. Because I go to the post office, I go to FedEx, I go to UPS, I never see these barrels. But where did our parents and our grandparents find these barrels that were massive, that we could fit 3 of us in there at the same time and get shipped back? That's crazy. That's
so
it.
I
Go
grew up
ahead.
seeing giving back, right? I grew up seeing giving back. Here's the thing though, with going back to being stressed by success and wanting to give back. Oftentimes you are challenged with, I feel so guilty that I don't feel like I deserve this. I have to give it all away. I have to give it all away because I feel guilty. But there's so many other ways to give. And we'll talk about that. But really it starts with the mindset of, okay, I'm the one that made it out. I'm the one that's here. Like, why me and not my cousin? Why me and not this person or that person? Who knows? Sometimes it just happens that way. But you have to remember that everything that you have, you worked for it. It wasn't luck. You went to school, you studied, you worked hard, you got that job, you got the promotion, you started the business, you put in the work, you grew it, you worked for it. So it's important to not discount or minimize what you did, what you put. It now allows you to be able to make a difference. You can't make a difference if you're back there. You can't make a difference if you're broke. You can't make a difference if you're not successful.
Mm, mm. And coming from an artist background, I always say to myself, and when I speak at larger engagement, I say, you're not an artist until you give back, right? You got to get to a place in your life to give back, because someone actually gave to you to get to where you are, right? But you are 100% right, because growing up in the South Bronx, there was numerous of times when I elevated myself ahead of my peers, and I was always afraid to leave them behind. It was one of the reasons why I was questioning whether to leave the Bronx and go on to distinguished university outside of New York, because I was like, I feel bad leaving people behind. But you're right. If you're in the back, it's the blind leading the blind, right? There has to be that person, that leader, to kind of like step out of there, and it hopefully creates more individuals to step out of their comfort zone. But you're 100% right, because claiming success and like without feeling guilty is like a whole powerful concept. How do you help, in a sense, coach someone to have that mindset I know obviously the workshop's going to share a lot about that, but like just briefly, like somewhere that you could kind of coach someone to have that mindset of like, it's okay, we're going to move forward. They'll follow behind if they really want to, because you got to remember, you can't lead. You can lead the horse to the water, but can't force it to drink at the end of the day.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it goes back to what I just said. Sometimes people don't pay attention to what they do. Like they have 5 degrees, they have a PhD and 3 masters and 2 bachelors, and they didn't pay attention to the fact that it took a lot to do that. They just kind of
Yeah.
like breeze by their success without really paying attention to the fact that they put that work in. So sometimes I'll ask people like, tell me what you've done. What were your accomplishments? What were your wins? And then I ask them, what did you have to do or what did you go through to get that? And when they're like, yeah, I used to stay up all night. And, I used to have to take the bus and the train and in the snow. And, it took me a long time and I failed. And then I finally got it. They start being like, oh, yeah, I did it. I do deserve this. I did work for this. And then the next part is highlighting now what can you do? What are you able to do? You're able to help people this way, that way. They can start listing, oh, I could do this, I could do that. These are all the ways that I can help.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not just money. And I'll give an example. 2020, 2021. 2021, still going through COVID, if you remember, still the pandemic time. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Vincent is a volcanic island. The volcano, for whatever reason, decided to erupt in 2021.
After COVID, people already suffering already.
This is during COVID. People still in masks and supposed to be, socially distancing. And then there's a volcano erupting. I forget how many days it was erupting, but you can imagine being trapped on this small island. There's a volcano erupting, and you're at home watching on CNN, seeing like this place is going through all this, and you're not in contact with your family. So my grandmother was there at the time. We didn't know if she was okay or not okay. No one could get in touch. No one could leave their home. They were basically people just locked in homes or hospitals or schools or wherever they were. That was terrifying. And it was like, oh my gosh, I want to give, but obviously I can't give all my money away. We in America. America got bills. So
Expensive.
the money.
Expensive bills.
It's expensive in America.
Yeah. Woo. And in certain places even worse. But that is a struggle. That already is a mental like twister right there, where you have reached a level in your life where you're successful and you want to give back, right? But you're disconnected from where you came from. And now you're looking on TV and you're seeing all this hardship, right? How do you, like, what could you help? Like, what are some of the things you could help someone think differently? Because that's gotta be very hard. There's a lot of individuals that I know have migrated to the States, but whether they hear from their family members and friends or whether they look on the news and they see it, where they came from is not doing, very well. Like they have that type of empathy for their place and where they come from, but at the same time, you're still in a position where you have to be successful. Like how could you help people juggle that?
Usually you have a feeling that you want to give back and you want to do something, you want to take action. And what I suggest, obviously, if you can't do it financially, right? You don't have $1 million, you're like, here's some money. There are ways to participate and take action. There might be an organization that's already doing something, so you can volunteer with that organization. I know that there were organizations that were sending water back there, sending supplies. So you can like get supplies for these organizations and they, ship them for you. So you don't have to take everything on yourself. Now we're talking about like a crisis of a big scale, but sometimes it's a smaller thing like, okay, maybe your old neighborhood. You can go back to your old neighborhood and volunteer.
Yeah.
You can go visit back home if that's possible, if you're able to. Because I do know some people aren't able to go back because of whatever's going on there. So if you can't volunteer in an organization or you yourself can't physically go there and volunteer, okay, well, how can you donate time? Is there something that you could donate time to? I know that right now I've had clients where they became like a board member of certain nonprofit.
An
So
organization back home. Yeah, okay, that's a really good
donations.
a
Mm-hmm.
really good take on that. You know, like you
Yeah,
said, you could financially try to contribute, but it could only go but so far.
right,
You need to be on the board to help make change. Is
right.
really like a stronger way of possibly doing it. Because
Yeah.
if there's more like-minded individuals working together for a common goal,
Mhm.
then it helps out the country. It helps out that area in need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You could donate your knowledge. Like, let's say you are an attorney and you know, like, okay, these people need some support, they need help. You can lend your skills. You can't be their attorney, but you can lend your knowledge and your network to them. You know, there are things that you can do, and you have to think about, okay, besides money, what else can I do? Because we have this innate desire to want to take action, and that is going to help you to feel like I'm doing this. This is what I can
Mm.
do.
And after the pandemic, if there's something that did come from it, is this opportunity to us virtually connect, right? So individuals back home can connect with us back here in the States and have this opportunity to have like that legal information being passed on, medical information being passed on. That knowledge can be shared virtually, right? And online versus I gotta fly back home. Because you feel more
Right.
obligated as well too. You're like, I got to get the money to fly back home. And that creates the
Oh,
anxiety and that pressure because then you're like,
right.
well, if I don't send this barrel back home sooner, maybe I need to go back home. And the
Yeah.
ticket back home is pretty expensive sometimes, depending on what time of the season you're traveling and stuff. So I could only imagine in those situations. With you working with entrepreneurs, I know that something that always comes up with entrepreneurs is the burnout, right? We talked about that American dream earlier, and we talked about like really pushing through, right? So when entrepreneurs are dealing with like burnout syndrome, such as like from career changes to overcoming like business anxiety, what is like some of the best advice that you give to people, dealing with that? I know work in that environment is sometimes 9 to 5, but it's sometimes not the traditional 9 to 5, right? It could be 20 hours a day, right? Depending on what you're trying to do, right? And how you're trying to get there.
I think a good question because sometimes people don't recognize what burnout looks like for them, especially high achievers. They don't know what burnout looks like for them. So they'll just keep working and working through it and pushing through it, which is it's a gift and a curse.
True.
It's a gift and a curse. So it's identifying what burnout looks like for you. For some people, their burnout shows up in their mood. They feel on edge. They're short with people. They're snappy. They don't have patience. Um, they got road rage.
Yeah.
Like,
We know those individuals.
yeah, there are people like that where it shows up that way.
They're on the highway road raging for their life.
Yes, exactly. For some people, it's they'll be like, I don't feel motivated by my work. I feel numb, not motivated by my work, not excited by it anymore. It feels like a chore. So the very thing that you started ends up feeling like a thing you want to avoid. You don't want to do it anymore because it feels like a chore.
Mm, mm,
Those
yeah.
are some signs. And then there's the physical stuff. Like physically, burnout will show up in your body. If you ignore the emotional stuff, it might be like constant headaches and migraines and stomach issues and back pains and joint pains. And, I'd say a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, they're getting more like physical sicknesses now. And it's all contributed to that stress. So I'd say this much. And I'll use myself as an example. Today was a rough day for me. It was a rough day. Like sometimes people are like, "Oh, what's it like being a therapist? It's so cool." And like, was your day good? Like, did you have a good day? And it's very complicated because, like, well, I mean, all my clients showed up today, but for whatever reason, there's a lot of death going on. So I'll have like
Sorry to hear
back-to-back
that.
client that lost someone.
Yeah.
And I explain it to people like, imagine if you're talking in a day to 5 family members and they're all in crisis and they're crying and that energy, they're sad. That's going to take away from you. So I recognize that. I recognize I'm feeling this, I'm feeling burnt out. So actually, before I came on to the podcast, I finished with my last client. I ate a meal because I didn't want to show up hangry.
Mm.
So I
Hopefully it
ate
was
a meal.
hopefully it was Caribbean food.
No, it wasn't. It was not Caribbean food.
It was
Stir
KFC.
fry. No, it wasn't KFC. I had a stir fry.
You had that stir fry. Okay,
I
okay.
only eat KFC in the Caribbean. I do not
Yo,
eat American KFC. But
I'm with you. I'm with you.
yeah, I took care of myself. I like watching old sitcoms. I like, watching 80s sitcoms, 90s sitcoms. So I'll watch that and I'll have a laugh. And it kind of like stabilizes me so that I am not burnt out. So you're always going to be managing it. I think people wait till they get to a certain point and then they're like, I'm burnt out. I got to do something. But if you're managing it
True.
every single day, you're doing things every day, it's going to be all right.
Mm-mm-mm. Now, when it comes down to like success for you, you're very, very, very successful. Like, how do you personally define success in your field of work?
There's a quote that I found a while ago. It's a quote by the late, great Dr. Maya Angelou. It's actually on my website, and it is success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And ever since finding that quote, I'll use that quote as like a guide for myself. Do I like myself? Do I like what I'm doing? And do I like how I do it? And if I feel like one of those answers is not a yes, then I have to make changes and I have to pivot. I have to take care of myself. It allows me to ask myself, what do I need to do? So for me, success, I'll say, looks like, am I doing good work? And good work is based on, what are my clients telling me? What are people saying? What feedback am I getting? Because I don't have a boss that's like, hey, here's your performance review. I get my feedback directly from the people that I work with. So them saying like, you know what? 3 months ago, I didn't know that I could do this, or 3 months ago, I felt like this and now I feel like that. To me, that is success.
Mm-hmm.
Success is also, I have an amazing relationship with my daughter. As a mom, that relationship is more important than any kind of professional success. So the fact that she's happy, she's healthy, we have a good
Good,
relationship, that to me is
good.
success.
And the fact that you have time to nurture that relationship, you're very successful.
I
You
make
have
time.
you
I
have a
don't have
lot.
time, I make it.
I like that because you have a very busy lifestyle, and to raise a child with that type of lifestyle is always hard to kind of juggle it. But you're definitely doing a wonderful job with that. Seneca, thank you, thank you so much for all the knowledge and information that you've shared with us on this podcast. Before we kind of conclude, is there any last words you want to kind of share with our listeners?
You don't have to be a crisis to ask for help. I think the best thing you should do is, if you haven't gone to therapy, you never tried it, try it out and see what it's like for you. You'd be surprised that by the questions that are asked, that there's something you need to talk about. And if for nothing else, right? Like, let's say you're not anxious or depressed. I'm sure there's something in your life that you want feedback from, because you're probably the go-to person that doesn't have anyone to go to. And that is the
Yes.
only relationship. That is the only one direction relationship where you're talking, you're getting support, and you don't have to worry about, oh, well, now it's their turn and I got to ask them how they're feeling and take care of them. That is the only relationship that you can get that kind of support that is really focused on you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for this sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your history, right? And opening up and being very vulnerable about those goods, those bads, and expressing to the listeners. I really admire how you spoke highly about mental health. A few of our previous guests, that was a very important avenue for them. They said that when I got to a place in my life, I felt like I hit a pitfall because I wasn't putting my mental health forth in the forefront. But you speak about it, and obviously working with entrepreneurs, because that right there right? It's a very, very hard lifestyle to live. And you could deal with the anxiety and depression and am I going to be successful? Like, how am I going to pay the bills? And it's so much that could fall on top of someone on top of just trying to create something so beautiful, right? It shouldn't feel so stressful, but it is. But having individuals like you in their ring can make a massive difference in the way they kind of perceive their life and their career. So I'm blessed to know that I've had that opportunity to speak to you, and I'm blessed to know that our listeners are going to be hearing from you and also joining you on that workshop series with Zaka.
Absolutely.
And to the listeners, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Seneca, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcasts.